Hey there, Sam. In the previous lesson, we talked about the features in Laravel Fortify. Let's take a deeper look at them in this lesson. First thing first, let's comment out all the features in Fortify, and we'll investigate how Fortify will behave at its core level. Let's go to our terminal and run php artisan route list. And as you can see here, at the bare minimum, Fortify will only add a login, logout, confirm password, and confirm password status routes to our app. Let's test each one of these authentication routes out. Let's start with the login route. We'll need some dummy data, so I'll seed our database by running the php artisan db-seed command. Now at this point, we can't use Postman or any other external HTTP client to test these endpoints. The reason is because our API endpoints here in Laravel are protected by the Verify CSRF token middleware. Since we are applying the web middleware group in our Fortify config, and the web middleware group contains the Verify CSRF token protection. The CSRF or CSRF attack is a type of attack where a hacker would use to perform operation on a web app on behalf of the user without the user knowing it. A standard way to avoid the CSRF attack is to attach something called the CSRF token inside every API request. Only the legitimate request will contain a CSRF token. So if an incoming request does not contain a valid CSRF token, Laravel will block the request immediately. Let me illustrate this for you to better understand the CSRF attack. Let's say this is Joe, our average daily internet user. Now today, Joe logged into his favorite banking website to make some payment to his friends. The bank web app uses a session storage to store all the login sessions. Once the bank has stored Joe's login session, it now sends back a response to Joe along with a session cookie, which Joe's computer browser will keep as a proof that Joe has already logged into the bank. Any subsequent API request that Joe sends to the bank will contain this cookie, and the bank will use this cookie to identify Joe's session inside the session storage. Everything seems to be fine until suddenly HackerBan has joined the chat. You see, HackerBan has targeted Joe for quite some time now, and he knows exactly that Joe will do some internet banking at this time of the day. So HackerBan has previously prepared a malicious website that contains some nasty JavaScript code that will send API requests to the bank website that will transfer money from the victim's account to HackerBan's account. And on the surface, this website seems like a harmless website that has nothing to do with banking. Once everything is prepared, HackerBan then sends an email to Joe with the email title of "We have just won $1 million worth of Bitcoin," while prompting Joe to click on the link inside the email body that will redirect Joe to the malicious website that HackerBan has previously prepared. This happened while Joe still has an active session in his banking website. Immediately after seeing HackerBan's email, Joe jumped out of joy. He thought that he's the luckiest person on earth, and he can't wait to click on the link. Upon clicking on the link, Joe encountered a dodge staring at him in his eyes on the screen. Disappointed, Joe thought to himself, "There is no Bitcoin after all." But at this point in time, it is already too late for Joe, because HackerBan's JavaScript payload is already executing while Joe is staring at the Doge and thinking about investing in Dogecoin. So HackerBan's JavaScript payload proceeds to run in Joe's browser and sends the transfer money API on behalf of Joe. And since Joe is currently logged into the bank assumes that the API requests are authorized by Joe and went ahead and transferred all the money to HackerBan. This all happened within a few seconds and without Joe knowing it. And that is a simplified example of how a CSRF attack would look like. And now the question is, how can we prevent this? And one of the solutions is to introduce the CSRF token. So the idea is that a bank web app would issue a unique token known as a CSRF token to all of its website visitors. Whenever the website visitors sends an API request, it should also attach the CSRF token issued by the bank web app. So now all the requests that Joe sent to the bank will contain the cookie and also the CSRF token. And upon receiving a request, the bank web app would verify the CSRF token by comparing it against the CSRF token that it issued before. By introducing the CSRF token, HackerBan can no longer perform the CSRF attack. The reason is because there's no way HackerBan can get the CSRF token issued by the bank web app, because the CSRF token only exists inside the page that Joe has visited, and HackerBan is sending the API request from its malicious page, and he couldn't see the CSRF token issued to Joe, so he can't attach the CSRF token into his malicious request, and therefore all the money transfer API requests will fail. So the moral of the story is, don't be like Joe and click on any random link in the internet, and always use a private window or the incognito mode in your browser when you're banking. And now back to our code. We now know that in order to send a request, we need to attach a CSRF token issued by Laravel inside our request. And that means we can't use HTTP client like Postman because we won't have access to the CSRF token issued by Laravel. I'll show you what I mean. So now if we go to Postman and send a post request to the login route, we see an error in the response saying that CSRF token mismatch. So the question is, how can we solve this? We'll need to install another package called Laravel Sanctum to address this, for which we'll talk about in more details in the next few videos. For now, just to keep this lesson going, I'll disable the CSRF token verification so that we can test the Fortify routes. We will revisit this topic again in the next few videos, and I'll show you the proper way of implementing CSRF token verification in the context of API server using Laravel Sanctum. Alright, now let's go back to Postman and we'll send our login request again, and now this time it works, returning us with a 200 response code. Alright, now we'll test the confirm password route. This route will only work if the user is currently logged in. It is a post request and the body should contain a password field. This route is very useful in situations where we want to reconfirm the user's identity. For example, when the user wants to change their profile information. Let's click on the send button, and our app returns a success response with an empty body. Now if the password is not valid, Fortify will return us an error response. Okay, next we have a GET request to confirm the password status of the user. Let's go back to Postman, change the request, and we see a success response. Great, let's move on. Next, we'll try to log the user out using the logout endpoint. And we see a 204 response with an empty response body. And now since we are logged out, if we try to call an endpoint that requires the user to log in, we'll see an error. For example, if I send a GET request to the confirm password status endpoint, we'll see a 401 status code with the response of unauthenticated. Alright, we just went through the basic features of Fortify, and now let's investigate the registration feature. We'll go back to the config file and uncomment the registration feature. And we'll go back to our terminal and run php artisan route list again. And this time we see a new addition to our route list, which is the register endpoint. Let's go back to Postman and test it out. We'll send a post request to the register endpoint, and in the request body, the register endpoint accepts 4 fields: name, email, password, and password confirmation. Once we're done, let's click on the send button, and we get a status code of 201 with an empty response body. At this point, we should have created a new user. Let's check it. We'll send a GET request to our user's index endpoint, and scroll all the way to the very bottom, and we see HackerBand, and that means our endpoint is working. We can customize the registration logic by modifying the create new user action file, living inside the actions Fortify directory. So if your front-end form contains other fields than the basic email and password, this is a place where you can customize the logic to create a new user. Alright, let's move on. Next, we'll enable the reset passwords feature, and it will add the forgot password and reset password routes to our app. The forgot password route will send an email to the user with the password reset link in the body of the email, and the reset password endpoint will actually reset the user's password. Let's go to Postman and try out these two routes. We'll reset the password for HackerBand, it will send a post request to forgot password, and the body should contain an email field, which is the email address of HackerBand. Now currently we're logged in. If we attempt to send this post request now, Laravel will throw us an error, because we're not supposed to forget our password while we're still logged in. So we should log out first, and then we'll try to forget our password again. And now we see a new error, saying that the route password reset is not defined. So it turns out that a link inside the password reset email should redirect the user to a view where the user can reset their password. Since we have told Fortify to disable all the views in our app, and hence the password reset route was not registered by Fortify. So to work around this, we should define our own password reset route, where it will show a form for the user to reset their password. I'll copy the route definition from Fortify's source code, which is living inside the routes.php file inside the routes folder. And I'll paste this route definition inside our web.php. And I'll refactor the code so that it will simply return us the password reset token. Let's give this another try. We'll go back to Postman, click on the send button again, and we get a 200 response, telling us that Laravel has sent us the password reset link. I'm using Mailtrap.io to capture any outgoing email, and inside my Mailtrap.io dashboard, we do see a new email coming into our inbox, and it is sent from our app that contains the password reset link. Let's click on it, and we're redirected to our password reset page, which is returning us our password reset token at the moment, as defined in our route just now. And now let's try to reset our password. We'll copy the token and go back to Postman, send a post request to reset password. These endpoints accepts 4 fields inside the body: the user's email, the new password, and the new password confirmation, and lastly, the password reset token. Let's click on the send button, and we see a success response. Great! Our endpoint is working, and now we should really consider to make a proper view for this endpoint. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll create a new folder called Auth in our views folder, and I'll create a new blade file called password reset in it. And now I'll use my fast forward life hack to quickly create a form to reset the user's password. My life has been very productive since I learned this skill. I highly encourage you to learn that skill as well. Once we're done, we'll go back to our browser and hit refresh, and our form is showing on the screen. Great! I think it is a good place to stop here. We'll continue in the next lesson. Key takeaways for this lesson: Laravel protects all its web routes from CSRF attacks by default. We will need Laravel Sanctum if we want to protect our API routes from CSRF attacks. We can use Fortify action classes to customize the user registration logic along with other actions. The password reset post endpoint requires a get route with a name of password reset in order for it to work properly. Otherwise, Fortify can't generate the email for the user to reset her password. That's it for now, and I'll see you again in the next lesson. If you enjoyed the content of this video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell icon for more content to come. It will really help me out. Thanks for the support.